Brilliant. So, hi everybody. I'm Alice. To anyone who hasn't seen me before or been to any of these sessions that I've been hosting, and I am a member of our support services team at Overcome. So, just a brief reminder for anyone who might be sort of new to using our services as to what we can offer you. So, we are here for anybody affected by ovarian cancer. So that's people living with the disease, but also their friends and family, healthcare professionals who support them as well. And we do offer that support in lots of different ways. So, as well as sessions like today, webinars that people can watch on our YouTube channel or sometimes come along to live, we have our support line where you can get in touch with any questions, if you're looking for a particular bit of information, or more often than not, just to kind of talk things through and have a bit of a chat. We're absolutely here for that. You can also get in touch with us via email and via our instant chat feature as well, which is available on our website, and even organise a one-to-one Zoom if that's something that appeals to you. We have lots of different support groups that we run online each month. As well as workshop sessions, which are things like crafts, creative writing, yoga, face-to-face events, which we run on about a monthly basis right across the UK, and sessions like today, which are our webinars, where we are joined by healthcare professionals, wellbeing practitioners, anybody really who is an expert in their area which relates to sort of living with ovarian cancer and all aspects of that really. So today we're really grateful and thrilled really to be joined by John from Perry and Phillips. And I'm not going to attempt to give John too much of an introduction because I'm sure he will be much more equipped to do that himself and to talk about his work. But this session, we were really excited and sort of looking forward to planning in as part of our end of life series. So we do have a series of sort of end of life resources available to our members, which are on our YouTube channel. We have several webinars that sort of relate to this topic, as well as a series of information booklets as well, which are all available to access free of charge. If you're ever looking for something and you can't quite find it, do just get in touch with us and we will be able to point you in the right direction. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to John, who will take us through this session.
Thank you so much, Alice, and thank you for the introduction. And again, as you said, I'm really delighted to be speaking with you today, and also delighted to see that relationship get even closer as time progresses. I wasn't aware of all the additional support and services that you provide at Overcome, and it really ties into the work that I've been doing locally and nationally for 4 to 5 years now, which I'll come on to today. So just to touch on that then, I'm a fourth generation funeral director based in Bridgnorth in Shropshire. I am a campaigner for bereavement education to be incorporated into the English education system. With that, I started a petition in 2022 whilst I was the president of the National Association of Funeral Directors, the NAFD. The NAFD oversee 4,500 funeral homes throughout the UK. I saw that time and that position as an opportunity to really champion something that I truly believed in. And that was for young people to learn about the emotions that are affiliated to loss, to trauma, to death, to dying, and to grief. And very pleased to say, after 4 years of campaigning, the petition success, it was debated in Parliament, and in July last year, it was announced that the bereavement education would now form part of the English education system in primary school and secondary schools throughout England as of September 2026. So that starts later this year, and it's incredible to see what's happened, to see the journey, and also now other countries are looking at what we've done here, and looking to emulate and to take forward what we've done here so well, and to implement it into their countries. So I never saw it going this far, but truly moved and humble to see it take place. And this all stems from the death of my own mum, Maria, who died from ovarian cancer when I was 12 years old. Her death, for any young person, was tragic. She had ovarian cancer for 6 years. She was given the all clear during the sort of halfway points of that journey for her. Very difficult, very sad, and I'm very fortunate though that my dad, Chris, he sort of gave me the tools and the confidence to speak to my mum throughout. We had honest conversations in our household, and I'm really grateful for that because I have no sort of bitterness or no regrets. As my mum was actually dying, I was able to speak to her, to tell her that we'll be okay, to tell her it was okay to go. Um, and I am really grateful for the opportunity because now as a funeral director, I really see how people don't have that privilege of being there and having the confidence to speak to their people who are dying. So that's where it all stems from. And I think I had 8 years in the Navy as well. And after leaving the Royal Navy and coming back into the family funeral service, I was seeing how people were trying to protect children from conversations. And actually, by giving people confidence, I saw how beautiful these moments could be. And that doesn't mean it was all positive. It was still very sad and hard, but actually the connection that they had within their own units, it grew. And then for me, a funeral director's role really in society is to facilitate people's grief, and that's by being creative, but also giving people confidence. And that's what I see now regularly. And the outcome of that, as I say, it's still hard, but actually, as they move forward in a more positive way because they've done these, what I call them, connection points, which is really, really important.
Yeah, thanks, Sean, and thank you for sharing your really personal and really moving motivations for sort of what has not just led you into the field, but perhaps triggered you thinking, as you say, more creatively, more broadly about what funeral directors can offer and why that's so important as well. I think what you touched on there about those really open conversations is it's something that a lot of people do sort of shy away from. They're not quite sure how to go about it. Am I going to upset the person? Am I going to upset the people around me? There's all sorts of kind of things, barriers that get in the way, aren't there? But as you say, the potential where if that is sort of done well, for want of a better way of putting it, that the connection between you and your loved one who's dying can be so rich and really something for you to take forward for the rest of your life as a sort of I was going to say a positive memory. It's sort of it's a bit of both, isn't it? But really rich and beautiful in what that can provide.
I'll give you an example, actually, Alice,
Mm.
of like on the ground experience. I did some work with a young lady. Her dad had recently died, and her mother was diagnosed with cancer. And the relationship between mother and daughter became quite detached and separated. And they asked to speak to me to try and help that relationship. And after spending time with them, it sort of we all realized we found the points, and it was the daughter was trying to protect herself from the death of her mother, which was sadly going to be imminent. And I spent time with the young lady and explained to her, I promised her that as hard as it is now, I promise you your future self will be grateful for having this close relationship now. If you push your mum away to try and protect yourself now, you're only helping yourself today. You're not helping your future self. And she came to realize that in the end, and the connection was made again. and she understood why she was trying to protect because she was so scared of being hurt.
Mm,
And it's a natural response. We don't, as humans, we don't want to do hard things, and I understand that. But unfortunately, what I've learned is doing the difficult things is usually where we find growth.
mm,
And unfortunately, grief is the sort of result of loving someone.
mm,
Um, and actually, we don't want to have that pain in our lives. But unfortunately, it's like with my mum, as much as it hurt me as a 12-year-old to go through that experience, now looking back, I feel so immensely grateful and so proud of her
mm,
and that relationship. Um, I'm truly grateful. I don't feel any bitterness or
mm,
any anger. I've let go of it all. So yeah, I look at it in a different way, and again, when you're in a storm, and that's what I sort of compare it to when someone is dying or someone has just died. It's like it's the unknown. There is no control, and it's panic. But
mm,
actually, by having these conversations, by getting the right support, like from Overcome and other charities out there, and from funeral directors and other professionals, it can really help you. It can't fix you because that requires you to do that, but they can provide you these sort of helping blocks to sort of guide you in the right direction.
mm,
And that's what I've learned as well is by having these conversations. I do talks in schools now as well. And quite often I'll have the adults, the teachers come through and stand at the back thinking, what's he going to say? You know, is he going to upset us all? Um, but actually, my sessions is probably 40% is about death, dying, grief, funerals, why we have these rituals, how it can help
mm,
us move forward with our grief. What is grief? Why do we have to feel this way? Um, what is a coffin? Why do we have a coffin? And then 60% of the session is actually around kindness, how we can step forward, how we can step up, how we can show up for people, individuals or families who are struggling, and what we can do to help them. And that doesn't mean you have to become a trained psychologist or counselor to help somebody. It just means simple acts of kindness. And that's, in my belief, that's what can change the world. You know, we can do things no matter what position you're in or what platform you have, you can make a difference every day by how we treat people. And that could be, again, an example, a child who's bereaved, their friends who have now awareness because of the curriculum changes, what this person might be going through. They could offer that person to come and join them at lunchtime if they're sort of feeling lonely and, why are they so quiet today? What's going on with them? Well, actually, now they have some awareness what the emotions of this person might be going through. So, again, simple acts of kindness, having some awareness within our communities and the classrooms in society. This is what allows us to move forwards in a healthy, positive way.
mm. No, yeah, I think that's completely true. And the word communities keeps springing out at me, and
Mm.
because that's really what you're talking about, isn't it? It's what role do we all have to play? You know, death and dying is something that will touch all of us. And so rather than it being something that is kept quite intensely private, which can leave people feeling quite isolated,
Yeah.
what can we all do, you know, to sort of play our role in supporting each other through, yeah, what is one of life's, you know, worst and most challenging experiences. And yeah, it sounds like you're doing really amazing and really broad work, actually. And perhaps that will surprise some of the people listening into this session, because, you know, I know from my own experience that funeral directors, perhaps the assumption is that you go along, you know, when your loved one's just died, and they sort out the funeral and hopefully do a wonderful job. And that's that, you know, that's their kind of sole purpose. But it sounds like what they're able to offer, what your team can offer, is quite a lot wider than that.
Um, yeah, and just going back slightly to the conversations and that community, as you mentioned, and I'll come on to the role of the funeral director. When my mum died, I felt very isolated. I felt like no one could speak to me about it, even like adults. And what I've learned as I've grown up is a lot of my mum's friends were sort of cheering me on and like, are they okay? But on the sidelines, they weren't actually telling me or speaking to me. So
Mm,
my view is to let people know that you're thinking of them. And again, I'm not bitter by this. I just see a solution. I see the outcomes. So that's what I'm trying to put forward. And now with the curriculum change, I believe we have a great foundation to do this. And then back to the role of a funeral director, um, what we do is what the vast majority of funeral directors do throughout the UK. And what I've learned now as well, I gave talks last year in New Zealand, sorry, in Australia. In March this year, I went to New Zealand, and other countries are also doing some amazing work in their communities, and it's all community driven. That's what it was all based on. My grandfather, my great grandfather, my father, they are all they are all integrated, and there's a sense of responsibility. I think what funeral directors aren't very good at is letting people know what they can do, because they're just there to look after people. It's so clear what the role is, but unfortunately times have changed. We have these TV adverts now suggesting a more easy option for people,
Mm.
removing the grief, removing all that hassle from a funeral. But unfortunately, in my opinion, doing the hard stuff again is how we move forwards. And again, I think nationally, I'm really interested in like, how we redefine what a funeral service is, because I've seen lots of things that take place before the funeral, which have, if not, have as much, if not more, impact as a funeral in allowing people to move forward with their grief.
Mm.
Examples of that are families coming to help prepare their people who have died in the mortuary or chapel arrest, being there as the coffin is closed, actually helping secure the coffin lid to
Mm.
the base of the coffin, which might sound barbaric to some people, but again, it's these acts that help us move forward, and we're all different, so therefore our needs will always be different. I think what funeral directors are very good at is adapting to those needs. But for me, I would really like to shine a light on what is possible, uh,
Mm.
and families going into their funeral homes, no matter where it is in the country or even further afield now, and saying, we'd like to help prepare our person, we'd like to do A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
So
Perhaps
being,
having the confidence to do so that yeah, maybe there is a sense that everything has to be done in this very particular way that
yeah,
we've all sort of been part of and it's kind of been passed down, and just having the confidence to know that there are these different ways of doing things that may, yeah, really resonate. And as you say, it's so deeply personal, isn't it?
of
What
course.
might really appeal to one person or a family might, yeah, be very different for somebody else. But yeah, it's giving people sort of autonomy, isn't it, in a really important time.
Yes, 100%. And I say this, I mentioned a family coming in to help prepare someone. That was a young man, actually, a couple of years ago, who took his own life. And his mum came in and she was so traumatic and so terrified, so fearful. And I recognized the reason why she was obviously all over the place. Firstly, her son had died, but because she had lost control of this horrendous situation. So my role is to offer her opportunities to retain and gain control, give her the keys again to her own life. And that's what we did. She sat down and she could hardly speak, and I could see she was like shaking. I said, before we begin, are there any questions you want to ask me? And she said, I need to come and see him. I need to come and see him straight away. So that's fine. And just so you know as well, I'm going to make suggestions to you, such as if you wanted to, you can come to the chapel arrest or the mortuary to help prepare him in his clothes. And there's different things like this I will suggest to you. And she was like, suddenly she was, yes, I want to do that. And then she started to calm, then realizing that she was, that control was coming back. And
Yeah.
actually, she came to the mortuary space. I showed her the mortuary space first, um, with obviously her son. No one was out, her son was away. And then just wanted to show her the space. Went down to the reception, had a cup of tea with her, then took her back up to the mortuary space where her son was now um, resting,
Mm.
and had candles lit in there, had music playing, which was their favorite music, just
Mm.
quietly to take away the sound of silence. And
Mm.
And actually, at the end of it all, she was like she was so lighter, and even as she left, like she had a
Yeah.
little smile on her face, felt relief, and
Mm,
she said to me actually, I was the first person to put his socks on, and now I'm the last.
mm,
And again, she was given control. And that's what the big thing is here is some people don't want to have that level of responsibility. It's just too much for them. It's too overwhelming.
mm.
But again, there needs to be choice and it's up
Yeah.
to them. It's their person, not ours. We are a funeral director there is there to facilitate and take care of a
Mm,
person. They don't become ours. We are there
mm.
to look after somebody on the family's behalf and therefore we adapt with creativity and provide a service of what they need, not what's suitable for us.
Yeah, it's listening to you, I just I'm quite staggered really with how powerful and meaningful these seemingly small moments can be. The impact of those can really, last a lifetime, can't it? And really
Yeah,
mean so much. And yeah, I think what you said about actually giving the person back some control makes a lot of sense. Yeah, in a time when you feel like everything's been pulled from under your feet and that everything's kind of spinning, and particularly with if somebody's sort of been in hospital for a long time, or
yeah,
not a long time, but there's often a sense that things are being done to the person and done to your family, even with the best intentions. So um, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me, that taking back a bit of control, yeah, there is a sort of relief in that.
yeah. And to follow on from that, and it's actually going back slightly, is the point where someone is dying as well. This is really important as well. I've had phone calls before from bereaved people to say that my wife has died. Can you come and look after her, please? I say certainly. I say, has a medical professional been to confirm that she's passed away? Yes, they've been, John. Okay. When do you want us to come to look after her? Well, you need to come now, don't you? I said, certainly not. So we can come whenever you want us to. I can be with you in 40 minutes, or I can be with you tomorrow morning. I can be
Mm,
with you at 2 a.m. Um, and again, back to control, what I've learned is that question, it gives them that control again. There's what I get frustrated at is some medical professionals saying you need to call the funeral directors and you need to
mm,
tell them to come now.
yes.
And that's not correct. That's not correct. The law states that someone who dies could stay at home until the day of the funeral.
Mm,
Um, the law states you can actually carry out a home burial if it meets the required standards to do that, which in rural Shropshire we do quite a lot of those in
mm,
sort of for farming
yeah.
communities.
Mm,
So effectively, someone could actually stay at home throughout. So why have we got this culture that we need to go straight away? Someone
yeah.
has been in that space in their space for weeks. It could be months. It could be years. And then within 40 minutes of someone dying, we turn up and
Mm,
that person's gone. It's like, I find it quite offensive.
mm,
Um, People should have time, and that time could be really, really important. I think actually it could be the most important time when someone has died, giving them that space. And again, it's that control, and you're not rushing. And the key word in all this is calmness.
mm,
I can't stand chaos, and the thought of like my wife dying and suddenly the funeral director's ambulance turns up, two men come in and they've got
mm,
it's so I'd want space and calmness and time. And again, you can say things after someone has died and take care of that person. They're still
yeah.
yours. And I've had it before where people have waited to the following morning so that someone might stay in that space in their bed for the night one last time. And I go the next day, and the calmness is incredible. It's like,
Mm,
and I've also been asked to go. No, you must come now, and I've gone straight away within 40 minutes, and it is chaotic. It's people are
yeah.
very upset, and oh, I need more time, and it's like, well, we'll do that. We'll do whatever people want, but again, it's informed decisions. It's education,
Yeah.
but I'm also, I'm aware this is big stuff, and actually, we all react differently. We might think, "Yeah, I want you to come now." We arrive, and no, I'm not ready yet. So again, emotions can take over, and I'm not sort of dismissing that. But the key part is, there is a an understanding, and there is a perception out in society that the funeral director must come straight away. And
Mm,
again, it's
mm,
back to that calmness and control. These moments can have a lasting effect if things are done in a more calm way. And to have calmness, you need education. And
yeah.
that's why these conversations are so important. So people are aware what is possible and also what they want.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's yeah, interesting, isn't it? As you say, perhaps it is sometimes emotions in the moment that take over, or it could be, the people that are behind that's their sort of first experience of death, and they think, oh, is this kind of what we're meant to do? And that's why I think what you say about sort of educating people about the sort of options available to them is so empowering, really. And as you say, can really leave that sense of kind of peace and sort of contentment with the way that things played out. Um, yeah, honestly, I find it quite inspiring, really. All of this conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will as well.
Go and then going back again, it's you're starting to form this picture now of what it can be. And with education, that's why how we started the conversation, going into schools and to have conversations about the emotions that are affiliated with death, dying, and bereavement, and what is grief. Then we start to understand these big points that I've raised. It's my belief and it's my hope that naturally they will start to get answered within ourselves once we have an understanding of what death actually is. I believe that we can create calmness by having these conversations in the schools. And again, it's really simple stuff. It's Lion King,
Mhm.
the Lion King film. We've all seen it. Most people have seen it. When Simba's dad dies in Lion King, it still gets me now.
Yeah.
Uh, um, but actually, it's kind of like pausing the video and saying, right, how do you think Simba is feeling right now? And then we're going through all these emotions. He's obviously he's devastated. He's
Mm,
scared. He feels vulnerable. He's fearful. He has no control. He feels guilty. He feels like he's to blame. And then we can go into further. What is guilt? What is guilt? What actually? Why would you feel sad? What is sadness? What are these emotions that we just talk about all the time? What are they? Why would they come? And actually having those conversations, it could be just that. The session, and we could go on to about acts of kindness. What could we do to Simba to help him? But then um, moving forwards, these young people then are having an understanding what their friends might be going through.
yes.
And
Yeah.
that's the big thing with this. And actually, regardless if you go through a death or you don't go through a death at a young age, these young people then become adults. They become members of a community and of a society. And actually, these adults are then capable of understanding what their friends are going through, what their family members are going through. And actually, oh, I know that what they might be going through. I'm not capable of having conversations about this, but what I am capable of doing is making a lasagna and leave it on their front door and
Mhm.
telling them that I'm not sure what to say to you, but there's a lasagna at your front door and I care about you. And suddenly,
It's something, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Alice, the world then is a better place.
Mm. Yeah. No, yeah, completely on board with all of that. I mean, I used to be a primary teacher, and I was just sort of thinking, I don't think I recall we ever had a single conversation. And, sadly, there were, children that I was teaching who, lost a parent, grandparents. And I think although the adults sort of tried to do their best, the other children sort of weren't quite involved, didn't quite know perhaps what to do or what to say. So I think you're right about the long-term impact of that. How can we all sort of show up for each other, and what might that look like? Yeah.
And that's a very exciting question to answer. And
Mm,
I do that with children now. What could we do? I break them into three categories. What could your classroom do for someone or a family who's struggling? What could the school do for someone or a family who's struggling? What can the community do for an individual
mm,
or a family who's struggling? The answers profound, and these are from young people. And I get so excited because I'm thinking, like, I say to them all, this is incredible. You are the future, and like these ideas already are incredible. Like you can educate us as adults. Um, so I am very hopeful and I'm very optimistic about the future.
mm. Yeah, rightly so. It certainly sounds like your petition, the impact of that. It's how fantastic that actually that's curriculum change. It's exciting, and it's a funny word to use, isn't it? I suppose when you're talking about death and dying, but just opening up that conversation, taking some of the taboo out of it, that I think is really sort of entrenched, perhaps particularly in sort of our British culture, that everything's kind of hush hush. Yeah, it's quite remarkable and really encouraging. And I think one of these, to sort of divert us slightly, but I'm sort of thinking about of the topics that come up around this when we're on our support calls and in our groups. And primarily we're speaking to people living with cancer. Some of them are sort of preparing really for end of life. Perhaps they've been told that they're sort of entering into that phase where very sadly treatment's no longer possible. And so as we say, people respond to that in lots of different ways. But often actually I have conversations where people are quite keen to understand, okay, well, what are my options? I want to, think about my funeral now. I want to sort of get my finances in order. I want to leave things in a place where it's going to be as easy for my family, my loved ones as possible. Um, and they want to have an active part in that while they're well enough to do so. And again, I think, perhaps people don't quite know how to go about that. Or I don't know, can you sort of walk into a funeral directors if you haven't had a death in the family? Yeah, I don't know if you can sort of add in on that bit really. What is within people's power? Sort of preparing for their own death really, and the sort of
Yeah.
logistics of that.
So I see it as there's two parts to it. There's financial. Do people want to sort out the finances? Um, or is it going to be, is it the meaning the wishes, what actually happens? It could be both, it could be one or the other, is how I see it. From a cost point of view, there are prepaid funerals, which funeral directors can provide all over the country. Um, my advice is always to go through a sort of a funeral director to do that rather than an online company, because the funeral director you go to speak to will have the local knowledge. They'll know that, for example, Bridgnorth Town Cemetery, for a non-parishioner, a non-resident, it's
Mm,
double fees, whereas an online company don't know this information, and
yeah.
then and then you have all this control, you have all this empowerment and getting everything in place, and then you find out after someone has passed away that, oh, by the way, there's double fees there.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and obviously it's no one's fault, but if you go to someone who's local, they can actually help you with that information. And
absolutely, yeah.
obviously,
Avoids that sort of shock.
yeah, but also,
That the sort of tension between, I suppose, wanting to honour the wishes of your loved one who's died. This is what they really wanted, and the reality of, oh, this is going to be a lot more expensive than we thought.
yeah,
So yeah.
and things can change as well. Someone could go into a care home just before they die. I've got a family at the moment I'm looking after that lived in Bridgnorth all their lives. They've moved just outside of the town 14 months ago, and now they have to pay double fees. So, there are occasions it happens where it's out of everyone's control. And I
Mm,
suppose, and the question I'd put to them is, do you still want this to take place? We could do it here instead, and it's
mm,
cheaper. So it's about a sense of responsibility to families as well to give that information. Um, Regarding the wishes, again, it's conversations. Funeral directors again will help you with that. Um, we've created a website called Legacy Share redefininggoodbye.co.uk, where it'll ask you lots of questions, administration questions, through to your beliefs on life. What do you think the purpose of happiness is? Um, and even down to the funeral wishes as well. And it's totally free to use. That's
And
legacy.
what did you say that was called? I'm sure we can link
Yeah,
into that. Let me write that down.
yeah. So that's legacyshare.co.uk. So
Fantastic.
and we've got lots of people using that site now, all over the country, which is great. Okay, it helps again. It's giving informed information for people. Um, an example of probably the most detail and personalization I've gone to a family. I went to see a lady who was dying, had weeks left to live, and she wanted to get the finances sorted and also her wishes sorted. And but she was a real go-getter, climbing mountains, and just she really lived her life. And by getting to know her, by chatting with her, I understood what sort of person she was. And again, my some of my suggestions were probably a bit more direct to her, and more open in my conversations with like creativity. What is the possible here? It was a church service followed by a burial in the churchyard in the planning. And I said to her as well, I went through the actual service with her, what happens in a funeral service for Church of England.
Mm.
And I discussed with her the address, the eulogy, which for a lot of people is the funeral. They're talking about the life and times of a person. And I said to her, you need to give it some thought if there's anybody you'd want to say that. And her husband said, not me, I'm not doing that. It's too much pressure. I like him. But again, it was all very light, and it was a lovely time together. And for me, a huge privilege to be part of that
Mm.
conversation. I did say to her then, I said, just so you know, there is a possibility, getting to know you like I have, that you could actually deliver it yourself as well. You've got the time now. If you wanted to, you could record it.
Oh, wow.
And by getting to know you, that go-getter that you are, who better to deliver it than you? And she was like, "That's it. I'm doing it.
Really?
I'm
Oh, wow.
I'm going to deliver it,
Yeah.
100%, John." And again, it's like she did that because she then found out what was possible. Um, and obviously, I did the funeral service for her some weeks later, which was very difficult for me. Again, it's important to say, a funeral director, obviously, it's a role within society, but we hold this stuff.
Mm.
We hold it. There was a cost to the relationships that we build, and people think, oh, it's a job, you're earning money for it. Well, actually, there's a lot more to it than that. It's a lot more
Mm.
to it than that. It's an important role, and it's a sense of responsibility that we have within our communities. And the church service at Stotterston Church near Bridge North, it came to the part of the eulogy, and it wasn't down in the order of service who would be delivering it. Obviously, the vicar was aware, and
Yeah.
the immediate family were aware. And then my colleague pressed play on the sound
Mm.
system, and
Yeah.
her voice came out explaining, like, this isn't normal, but this is how I do things. And I just smiled, thinking like, wow, what a lady,
It's incredible. Yeah.
what a lady, what a lady, and talking again about control. She took control right to the end,
Mm.
and even after she was in control. So what a lady, and what an example to give you on what is possible. And I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting that's right for everybody. For most people, it won't be right. But again, it's an example of what can be achieved when we have these important conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really remarkable. And yeah, it brings a sort of smile to your face, doesn't it? Just to sort of think about her, and what that would have meant to her and to the family as well, that
Yeah.
she was able to do that in the way that was just perfect for her. And as you say, it's all about choice, isn't it? And
Yes.
enabling that, opening up the conversations. And it sounds what is probably a part of your work that's particularly rewarding is where you're involved with a family before somebody dies, and actually, yeah, getting to know that person, as it's such a privilege. Yeah, and as you say, the sort of emotional impact of that, I can well imagine. But perhaps, yeah, that's something that some members of our community would be interested in, that actually you can get to know your funeral director, before the fact. You can
Yeah.
feed into your own planning and own ideas, and yeah, it's quite remarkable.
In my opinion, in society, there is a lot of unresolved grief. People who
Mm,
haven't dealt with this stuff. And for me, by having these conversations, that's how we move forwards as individuals, as families, as a community, as a society, as a nation. And again, it goes even further now. Other countries following our suit, so it's really impactful. And I think for me, having these conversations with you, it kind of reminds me of that bigger picture, which subconsciously I've always been working towards. And
mm,
the curriculum work, it really underpins all this work, which again is just so important in society.
yeah. Brilliant. No, thank you so much. And I mean, we've just got a couple of minutes. I think we could probably chat for hours, couldn't we?
Yeah.
But I think you have certainly, yeah, touched on lots of areas that will be of real interest and probably sort of new information really to lots of it. I know a lot of it is new to me about that level of control and choice that can really go into this. Certainly I wasn't aware. I kind of thought, you pretty much follow your set formula for things, and that's just how it works. Um, I mean, one of the questions, sorry, that links on to what we were just talking about is, somebody has asked how early is too early? And I suppose I anticipate what your answer might be, but I'd like to get things sorted when I feel well enough. So how early is too early, and how might somebody actually start that process with their local funeral director?
So I'm probably the wrong person to ask when it's about how early is early because I'm aiming at schools. So, and that's now in place. But under the circumstances, and especially around the question, and that's basing it on somebody who's had tragic news, I would say you look after yourself. You need to be kind to yourself. And the questions that you ask the funeral director might be just online initially. You could just email some questions, so you're still in the comfort of your own home. You still have those barriers up deliberately, so you feel safe. And then the answers that you get back, um, being really, they'll be open with you. The funeral director will about what is possible and give you information. But it might help you just to go and actually into the funeral home and shake their hand and meet them. For me, some of my most impactful moments are being with people who are dying. I remember about a month before I got married, 2000 and oh gosh, 14 marriage. Hopefully that's right.
I know.
Um,
Come on.
hopefully my wife doesn't watch this. 2014, 2015. Um, I went to see a lady at Seven Hospice, and again, discussed all the arrangements with her. Um, really, really moving, and I got to know her really well. I explained to her I was getting married. We didn't discuss funeral arrangements for some time. Just talked about life together. Explained to her I was getting married in a few weeks' time. Told her how terrified I was about the first dance, which she found very amusing. And we had a joke about that because she loved dancing
Oh,
in her younger years. And then we went on to the arrangements and got everything in place. Her daughter was there, her son-in-law was there, her daughter Karen, who I'm still very close with now. And this is
mm,
probably what 14, 12,
wow.
14 years ago. Um, the funeral took place and very emotional, very moving. I was in tears on the drive back from the Seven Hospice after I made the arrangements
Mm,
with her because it was just so hard. But they said carried out the funeral for her, and everything was done as she wanted. A few days after the funeral, I received a letter in the post, and it was actually from her, and she bought me dance lessons for my wedding,
oh my
which
gosh.
was in a week or two's time. It just meant the world to me that on
Mm,
someone's last moments,
mm,
they were still showing that level of kindness and consideration towards somebody else. So again, it just fills me with hope and optimism about society, really.
That, yeah, that's so moving, isn't it? And what a way for you to sort of remember her by. I'm
Yeah.
sure when you sort of hit the dance floor, yeah, you had her in mind.
I did, but I was still very bad at dancing. So, yeah,
A couple of lessons, yeah, didn't do quite enough,
not
maybe.
enough, not enough. I need a lot more than that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, I think we've sort of got time for maybe one more question.
Yep.
And I suppose what we're touching on now is where perhaps the person, who is dying is quite keen to, yeah, kind of get the ball rolling, as it were, get these conversations started. But we know that understandably sometimes friends and family and loved ones find that really, really difficult. And as you say, can be sort of try to avoid it, or no, we're not going to talk about that, or squash it in whatever way they can, through their own sort of fear and sadness, which makes complete sense. I suppose, do you have any advice, really, whether that is advice for, the person themselves, the family? What can we do to sort of open up these conversations, perhaps in a way that, I was going to say, is as easy as possible? I suppose you know what I'm getting at, but
Yeah, I do. I
where
do.
families can perhaps be, without intending to, but kind of shutting things down, and
Yeah.
the person would really like to talk about it.
I think with this, it's really important to recognize other people's emotions and where they are at. So
Mm,
some people might be closed down and not wanting to talk about it, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean everybody else should be dismissive as well. So, like, I'm a believer in them. No matter what is going on in someone's life, you should still consider other people. Like, we
mm,
should still want to do that. And no matter how bad things are, especially when there's children involved, we can't be dismissive and we can't be overprotective because I'm in such pain. I want to
mm,
shield them from all this stuff. I need to consider actually, this is how I'm feeling, and that's fine. But I do still need to consider how are they feeling.
mm,
I can't just assume something based on what I am feeling and what I am thinking. So I think the key part of this is no matter what you're going through, you need to have conversations. And that's not to say that, again, I think there is a perception of me that I'm saying that all kids should go to funerals. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we should have conversations with
mm,
our family unit or people very close to us where we feel like we can have these conversations, or we have a right to have these conversations where we need to just be able to approach it and not be dismissive
yeah.
and and not assume. I think that's the key part.
Mm,
Never assume what someone is going through. And if other people react in a negative way towards you, don't take it personally.
yeah.
Because in the years to come, I'd rather someone be offended or upset with me for me trying
Mm,
rather than me just, being silent because it's an easier option. So I prefer to have the first option. And when I
and
say
yeah.
trying, it's literally just saying like, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know.
Mm,
Or a friend of mine, he's got he had a son that's quite poorly, and he went into hospital, um, trauma, panic, and went round to his house for a bag of shopping for him. Didn't tell
mm,
him, left it at his front door, done. And it's kind of like I don't need to give him loads of words, and there's nothing to say really because the situation is just
mm,
awful. But you can just do simple acts, and that's my key part of this. I don't need to start like checking in on him. How are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm not saying
yeah.
that. It's just simple acts, and
Showing up, isn't it, in all
yeah,
sorts of
yeah,
different
yeah,
ways.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think what you said there about, trying and not assuming how others might be feeling, I think it's probably safe to say nobody's going to be having an easy time of it. When a loved one
correct.
is dying, people will be struggling in different ways. And so by opening up the conversation, you create that opportunity to connect and to benefit from that kind of mutual support, don't you?
Yeah,
Whereas perhaps fearing, or, I don't want to put my sadness onto them, or
yeah.
whatever it is, everyone's then kind of in silo, sort of
I,
struggling
I
alone.
I've seen both sides of the fence. I've seen the side of the fence where a bereaved husband, has said to me, "You can see your friends are, John." He said, "You can, I've literally written off those people now because they haven't bothered with me." And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Unfortunately, we all react differently when someone dies." I've seen the other side of the fence, the friends, not that particular person, but in different circumstances, saying, "Well, what are you meant to say, John? What are you meant to say?
Mm,
That's why I can't approach it, John. What are you meant to say?" And I'm thinking like the slightest turn of the dial,
mm,
giving some simple tools to people. Suddenly, the other side of the fence, where the gentleman who lost his wife,
yeah,
suddenly he feels like, actually, you know what? People do care because
that's what that's for.
because society is very caring, but
Yeah.
it's about how we show that. That's the key part of this. And the slightest turn of the dial,
Mm,
that really excites me because then the world as I keep saying, becomes a kinder place.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, not being sort of paralyzed by not
Mm.
knowing what to do, just doing something, trying can, yeah, make such a huge amount of difference.
I
So,
met I met a guy, a colleague for another funeral directors, and someone within the funeral directors, who's a driver, was dying, and he had cancer, and he'd popped into the work to say hello and a few of the guys around him, and I was chatting to this colleague saying, how is he? How's he getting on? And he said, I don't know really. I said, well, did you speak to him? He said, well, not really, no, but I wanted to, but I wasn't sure what to say to him.
mm, mm.
And I thought, what a shame. What a shame because he was telling me about him, but he
So
hadn't
he,
told
yeah, the
that.
care was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the care was there. He wanted to speak to him, and the gentleman that was had cancer and sadly died. He never knew. He had an idea, but he could have
Mm,
imagined how he would have felt if this person had told him. I'm not sure
yeah,
what to say to you, but I just want to let you know I think the world of you.
yeah. So simple. Yeah,
He would
yeah.
feel better for saying it. It's off his chest, and he knows that that
Mm,
person now knows that he cares, and the person receiving the information as well. Wow, wow,
mm. Golden, isn't it?
yeah.
Really is. Yeah. Yeah, quite a lovely note to end on, really. So thank you so much for your time, John. Yeah, it has been just such an interesting, educational session that I think, yeah, I'll sort of be thinking about for a while. And it's just brilliant to hear about all of the work that you're doing, which really lies so far beyond your office. You know that you're, yeah, making change in society, and that is huge and yeah, much needed. So yeah, thanks again so much for your time, and I will end the recording here.
Thanks, Alice. All the best to you.
Thank you.